Hi, everybody. I wanted to welcome you to the webinar with the American Agents Alliance. For those of you who don't know who we are, we're a national insurance association of independent property and casualty insurance agencies around the country. A lot of our members also write life and health products, small commercial, personal lines, and we've been in business since the 1960s, providing agents tools to grow their agencies, serve their clients better, and one of those products that we've been really working hard on the last couple of years is the creation of a live call program. You know, we had been very open to generating internet-type data leads as well. We had done it organically for a couple years, building landing pages, doing the keyword research. We'd retained top-flight conversion companies that build high-converting landing pages for Fortune 500 companies and do all the keyword research for their clients. And we could only ever really get our lead cost down to about $70 a lead, and that dog just would never hunt because it's too expensive. There's plenty of bad leads out there. In fact, I'd say most of these lead companies are just abominable. You know, they would sell poisonous candy to their kids if they could make a buck doing it. The leads are dated, they're aged. Consumers are tricked into providing information that then becomes sold as a lead, and they become oversold at that. And so there's plenty of places to go for bad leads. We wanted to generate good leads. We wanted them to be exclusive. And you know, when we were doing our own organic lead generation, we were spending $12 to $15 a click to generate leads, and you know, maybe 1 out of 5 of those clicks would convert to an actual lead where the consumer says, I want to talk to an agent, or I would like to get a quote now for auto insurance or home insurance. And you know, that just became much too expensive of a proposition. And you know, we had tried buying our own calls, live calls, dynamically through auction platforms, but unfortunately, most of the live call programs out there come through what's called an IVR, a voice recognition system. So the consumer calls, and they get an automated recording. You know, for 1, push auto insurance; for 2, push home insurance, yada yada. Push 1 if you're currently insured, push 2 if you have no insurance. And so the consumer just hits 111-000-222, and that call goes right to an agent. And we had real quality problems. And so it became pretty apparent to us that we really needed a live call program where the calls would come through a live call center, and actual humans would pre-qualify the calls before they ever get to the agent. And I understand why most lead companies use IVRs, because it's scale. They can take, you know, lots of calls at the same time, and it's cheap. There's no human involved in that. But we're concerned with quality, not quantity, and fortunately we've kind of got both. We have partnered with a lead provider that we think provides the highest quality calls, and we have no problem with quantity generally either, depending upon where you're located. And so today, we're going to take a quick look at that lead provider's live call dashboard, and we've also partnered with what we think is the best lead nurturing program available. And the value proposition with this lead nurturing program is really incredible. And for members of ours, we've negotiated a $150 bonus to get the live call program going, and a 60-day free trial on the lead nurturing piece. So we've got great calls for you. The quality is as good as we've ever seen. We've got a lead nurturing system, so when you're done talking to the consumer, if you cannot close them on the first call, which we would strongly encourage you to do, that person gets nurtured to a decision over the next 30 days or so. And if you cannot close that person, it gets remarketed at policy renewal 6 months down the road. The third piece, before we get started, that we have rolled into our program for our members is sales training. And so before you will even get on the first call with a consumer, we're going to teach you how to close these calls, because there is a science to this. You know, we've got a guy in Ohio who took his closing ratio from 15% to 40% by doing certain things in the call. And part of it is how that call is actually answered when the consumer is transferred to their office. And how do we talk about coverage? How do we isolate and overcome objections to actually get them to say yes? And so we cover this with some scripting, and you know, before folks even get on that first call, we will do some tactical sales training, and that's really the glue that holds this thing together. Much as it pains me to say it, you know, most agents are just abominable salespeople. We've heard you on the phone. You're horrible generally as a lot. And for some time, we had recorded the calls in our testing period here. And I will tell you that if you want to do nothing more than make your agency much more effective, listen to your people on the phone. It will shock the conscience. And we have built our sales training program with that in mind, because we've heard lots of those calls. So our calls are exclusive. They only go to one agent, you. But as I said, the problem is not the call quality. The problem is generally you. Most agents can't sell. Be attuned to that. If you want to help yourself and your staff on the sales training side, and we can definitely provide some wisdom for you and some basic training to get you going on that piece. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Michaela from Datalot, and we also have folks on from Blitz that will come in after Michaela, but we'll do a quick demo of the dashboard that all of our folks have access to as the call is coming to your office from our call center. The dashboard is what you will see in real time, and the information that you will get from our partners at Datalot from the call center. Michaela, take it away.
Okay, thanks, Mike. So to kind of just jump right into things about Datalot, all of the calls are consumer initiated. However, there's two different processes in which the customer can come to us initially. So one way is going to be by filling out a form online after doing a search looking for insurance. So they have keywords in there related to getting a quote or competitive rates, and they're actually doing this search. And based on the results of that search, they're going to get on one of our hundreds of landing pages that are really generic, where they're going to be able to fill out their information and request to be contacted. And so when they actually check that box with consent to contact, one of our phone reps, who is a live person, is going to outbound dial to the customer based on the request in real time. So we get the customer on the line, and we're going to start to verify some information that he's provided by asking him questions on a script. And we're going to find out where he's located, his date of birth, if he has current insurance, if he does have current insurance, who that's with and for how long he's had it without a lapse, if he's had any at-fault accidents, DUIs, or SR22s in the last 5 years, and if he owns or rents his home. At the end of that, we're also going to confirm the fact that Joshua Lewis, in this case, has time to speak to an agent right now, and at the very minimum that he expects to be on the phone for 5 to 10 minutes. So prior to transfer, we're going to confirm all of that good stuff. And on your end, if you have your dashboard as active, we're going to call you from a fixed phone number. So if you see our generic 888 number pop up on your line, you're going to answer the phone maybe a little bit differently than you would if it was just an outside call coming directly to your office. When you answer the phone, one of our phone reps is going to do a brief intro and say, "Hey, agent, I have Joshua Lewis on the line. He's looking for auto insurance in New York." You're going to say, "Great," patch him through, and then our rep is going to merge Joshua on the line, do another short intro. "Hey, Josh, I have your agent, Mike, here. He's going to help you with that quote. Have a great day." And by the time we're getting off the phone, you're going to be receiving this information here, and you'll be able to click on it and access it directly from the dashboard, or You'll also alternatively be able to access the information in Blitz. So all at the same time in real time, you'll receive that information at the time of the call. So
hey,
Joshua,
could I mention something I forgot to mention earlier on? We're recording this for people to listen to and watch later. So if you are listening to this, after the fact, you won't have the ability. But for the folks that are on the call live right now in the webinar, if you've got questions, you can type them into the system here, and we can answer your questions either audibly or by typing a response. So feel free to ask questions along the way. Sorry, Michaela. Thank you.
That's okay. So Joshua Lewis, again, was someone who filled out a form online. You're going to have a lot of information on the customer here. You don't have to go into the call, re-asking him a ton of questions that we've already verbally asked. So you can start with things like, hey, is there any other drivers that are going to be on the policy, and, kind of build a rapport from there, utilizing the information that we already took the time to collect. If you get a call and it looks like less information, it's not because the system is messed up. It's just because of the way that the customer came to us. So by looking at Jake Zadskin, you can see that compared to Joshua Lewis, that there's a lot less information. The process for Jake is, instead of filling out a form online from a landing page, he conducted the search for a quote on a cell phone. So being that most phones today have that touchscreen option, he's able to use click to call, a function on a smartphone, to press on our phone number through that Google search and actually be connected to one of our phone reps as an inbound call. So we're only going to go and verify the information that I had mentioned earlier as far as scripting, like where he's located, his date of birth, current insurance status, and then high value information listed here. So the process is the same. We're going to make sure that he has time now to speak to an agent and that he actually wants to be transferred. And if you're available, you're going to get a call from a fixed caller ID number. And when you answer, there's going to be a brief introduction from my rep, and then we'll bring the customer on the line with you. So in this case, obviously, you're going to have to obtain further information on your end, but it does give you an opportunity to build kind of a more personal relationship with the customer as far as being able to conversate during that time. So the quality difference isn't really, one's not better than the other, but agents are under the impression that with more information that they will do better, and it's just not the case. So don't focus on the amount of information. Just keep in mind that Joshua Lewis may have been in this process a little bit longer because he filled out a form online and also spoke to someone at our office, whereas Jake just spoke to someone in our office and has probably been on the phone for less than 2 minutes. So how you handle those might be different. To the right of all the calls, you can see that they're logged and recorded. You're able to listen in live on these calls. If you want to do some quality control, maybe you're out of the office just wanting to check in on your staff, you can look at these call recordings after a phone call for any missed information. If there's somebody else doing a follow-up call down the road, they can get reacquainted with the customer by the call recordings as a pipeline tool. And then lastly, we like to use the call recordings for any credit requests that you may have. So maybe we transferred you a call and there happened to be no customer on the line, whether it be a tech issue or, a cell phone dying. You're not going to be billed for a call at that point. You'll get a refund back for that, and we just listen to the recording to verify. Again, on your end, I would say that one of the major things to keep in mind, if it's something you've never done before, is to secret shop your agency and just listen to the calls, because you would get a lot of feedback just from that alone as far as where your guys are at in their selling process and where you might need to work on it. A callback. You are not billed for callbacks because the calls are 100% exclusive. So if you speak to a customer who disconnects for whatever reason without getting your direct phone number, or maybe they just wanted to continue shopping online and hit one of our pages again, anytime that they try to contact us, it is rerouted to you and you are not billed for it. We never speak to them again. So it would just come directly to your office. So moving along to the call settings page, The system is completely in and on demand of the agent. So if you're available, you can let us know. If you're not, it's just as easy to turn the calls off. But what we really want is for people to set a schedule and just be as consistent as possible. So prior to getting started, you can come into your dashboard here and figure out the hours that you guys would be able to take calls. You're able to set that up in advance. And if you were to save that and there was any changes that happened in the meantime, you would then be able to adjust it again. So there's no sort of requirement or, you know, contact necessary to make those changes. If anything happens and what you had pre-planned for is not the case anymore, you'll easily be able to shut the system down. So on the schedule, even though we're saying, hey, I'm available from 11 to 7, you may want to also let us know that you have a budget in mind and you do not want to take over 5 phone calls during that time frame. Once you pay for 5 phone calls during that time frame, even if it's by 3 p.m., we will stop sending you phone calls for the remainder of that day. If you need a break in the schedule, if you have a set lunch break every time, or even if later on in the evening you want to go home and take phone calls, you can have multiple different blocks of time set up for the system to turn on and off for you. Now, if you don't want to change your schedule but something comes up and you can't take phone calls, you have the option here to pause your schedule for a certain length of time or turn it off indefinitely. So when you turn off indefinitely, it's not indicating to us when you're going to be available to turn back on. Even though you have a schedule set, that's basically like the main control, like vacation mode you could call it. If you want to keep the schedule the same way, however, you're going to be out for an unknown length of time, off indefinitely gives you the option to just turn the calls off completely. The concurrency cap right here to the right is going to be correlated with how many calls you can take at once. So if you have a staff of 10 there, we don't want to just send you 1 call at a time. We could send you up to 5 calls at a time or up to 10 calls at a time if you guys were available. So that is just going to correlate to how many people you can have on the phone at once on our calls. You're, as the agent, able to change that at any point in time if any of those things change. So on your end, it's all self-serve. The max bid price is another thing that you're able to change. And that's really going to be a suggested number initially based on the supply and demand in the area of where you're going to take calls and also the type of call that you want to take. So we would set you up with an average max bid, and then in this case, with a $32 setup, you would be billed at a range for calls, again, based on the supply and demand in that area. So you would never pay more than that allotted max bid, but you will be billed at a range lower if the calls are coming in cheaper that day. So it's always going to be at a range. If you're not getting phone calls, sorry, go ahead.
Hey, Michaela, can I say one thing real quick?
Yeah.
That the geography matters, so it depends on what state you're in. I just wanted to reinforce something that Michaela said. Based on, because this question comes up a lot, based on where you are in the country and whether you want auto, home, life, commercial, and I know that you guys sell some Medicare supplement, not a lot, but essentially the type of lead, auto, home, small commercial, or life insurance, and then where you're located. You know, I've talked to some of our folks that are paying as little as $10 in some place in Florida, which is unheard of to me that the lead cost would be that low or the call cost would be that low. But I think safely you're going to be somewhere between, you know, $20 and $40 depending on where you are and what you're buying, sort of deal. And it's exceedingly important that you be available to take the calls when they come, but you control your max bid. In most cases, it won't exceed this. It'll be below this, but it will never be more than this. Thanks, Michaela. Sorry about that.
No problem. Thanks. So yeah, if your phone isn't ringing at the max bid price that maybe you set on your own end, it could mean that there's either a lack of volume or it's just too low based on other agents on the platform. So that's something that we'd always be able to check for you. But I just wanted to briefly cover that you are in control of that number. If anything changes as far as your marketing budget or your call volume expectations, we can always readjust it. The destination phone number is where we will send calls. So most of the time, we're going to send that to the office to a line that salespeople can answer. However, I do have some single agents that work between office and home. So if they are at the office from 9 to 5, but they want to take calls from 7:30 to 11 Eastern, then they can go ahead and click this little pencil and adjust that phone number on their own. And whatever is set there is the number that we will recognize as far as where to send the calls to. So you can change that at any point in time. We can make the change for you if necessary. Any filtering that you have set up will be over to the right here, just as a reference for anybody taking the calls. In this case, it's just an auto insurance profile that is excluding DUIs, and they are willing to take calls in the full state of Florida. Another quick thing that I want to show you is our credit portion. Anytime you want to request a credit, you have to go within the call market portion of the dashboard and into the call history page. And when you have an actual account here, you'll be able to adjust your date range here to look for specific calls if that's what your prerogative is. In this case, we're just going to look at how to request a credit. And when you do request a credit, you have to do that within 48 hours. So if you get disconnected from a person that you plan to call right back, or you want to see if they call you back, you don't have to request a refund right away. You do have 48 hours. To request a refund, you come to the call history page, you click on the customer's name, and then in the bottom right-hand side of the drop-down info, there is a little gear icon that will disappear after the 48 hours. When you click on the gear, you are going to be given a few options to choose from as far as why you're requesting a credit. And based on the products that you set up, this list will vary. And you want to be as specific as possible to the reason as far as why you want the credit. If you're on the phone with a customer and you're on the phone for 5 minutes and they ended up having to go because they just got to the store, then you don't want to request a credit for having no customer on the line. In that case, it actually may not even be valid for a credit, but in any case, you want to be as specific as possible to the reason that you're requesting it. We also have a downloadable link here that you're able to access for our credit approval policy. And based on the product that you decide to set up with or the multiple lines that you decide to take calls from, this will be just there for a reference that you can look back on at any time.
Let me say something, Kayla, real quick. That
yeah.
I love the fact that that you guys record calls, and it's important for agents to understand that not only is it a tool for you as agency principals to be able to listen to calls being taken in your office, but from Datalot's perspective, they want to do better. And so if they've got a certain number of credit requests coming through a particular person in the call center, there may be a problem with that person who's in the call center, that's creating a situation where maybe somebody's getting leads outside of their filter set. If I was going to buy auto leads, for instance, I would want preferred standard leads. I don't want non-standard. So I might say, hey, I only want drivers that are 25 to 65 that own a home and that have prior. And if I'm getting stuff outside of that filter set and it's coming from a certain person in the call center, Datalot wants to know that, and they want to get that person straightened out. So just so you know, the recordings are as much for Datalot to control quality as it is for you guys in your agencies. So Datalot's doing everything right here. I really think this is a fantastic system. Thanks, Michaela. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Thanks, Mike. So the last thing that I want to show you, and to kind of keep with the same theme that everything is on demand and self-serve for the agent, it's going to be the billing page. And on the billing page, you'll just see here that you're able to add a credit card on your own. So once you're set up with an account, even though we do the back-end setup as far as filtering and everything, it's going to be up to you to add your card and the card information to make any type of deposit. Initially, you're given the option, and at any point you have this option to either activate or deactivate auto refill. So if you do not want your card to be drafted without you manually making a deposit, you just simply click that to no, and anytime that you come and make a deposit, you will be able to select the card that you want to use, depending on what you have on file, and then just manually type in an amount that you want to deposit. So that's all on your end as well. Every single call that you take, any dollar spent, any bonus given back, any credits applied, every transaction would be listed here for reference. And another thing would be that date range again, just like on the call history page, where you can adjust that, and you can even export it to an Excel file and kind of track things, separately if that's what you wanted to do. But it's all really easy to work and all self-serve for the agent. So that is where I'm going to leave off, Mike. If you think I missed anything, let me know.
Yeah, thanks, Michaela. I mean, I can just tell you that I have my own dashboard here at the Alliance where I can see what calls are being bought and by whom and in what number. And I find the dashboard exceedingly user-friendly. It's very clean. And I will tell you that if I were buying leads, I would have 2 monitors. I would always have DataLot open, but probably minimized. And the same data that you just saw on that screen, vehicle information, consumer contact information, name, rank, serial number type stuff, that all gets automatically moved as soon as the call is transferred to your office. All that data also moves into the Blitz lead nurturing system that we're going to now take a look at. And just so you understand, you're going to be working on your comparative rater, sort of feverishly moving data, keying it into your, EasyLinks or Turbo Rater or FSC, Vertafore, PL Rater, depending on what state you're in, what product you're using. But I will tell you, most of your calls are not going to be closed on the first time. As you know, some people need time to think about it. They need to talk to their spouse. They're just not ready to pull the trigger for whatever reason you couldn't close it. You want to be living in this ecosystem right here in Blitz, because this is where when you hang up that receiver and you're done with that call, you can tag this particular prospect accordingly, and that lead will be automatically nurtured. It is unbelievable. Automatically be nurtured based on certain criteria that we will see right here. And this is totally customizable, but they already have established templated workflows. If this is a lead call that came in and we're going to tag it as a hot lead, these certain things happen. The person is emailed at these intervals with these types of communications, etc. You can automatically drop stuff onto your calendar for callback. On the other hand, if this is a requote, and you tag it as a requote, that lead is going to be nurtured differently than somebody that's a hot live call that just came in. And to that point, you can put any other leads into this nurturing system that you want. If you buy leads from other sources, if you buy internet leads, data leads, if you've got a bunch of stuff on spreadsheets, prospects that you've accumulated, by all means, all of those can go in here as well. And like I said, for our members, or if you become a member, we've got a 60-day free trial of the Blitz system, their high-end system. I think it's called Professional Plus. I could be mistaken, but I think that's it.
Yep, that's right.
And then after the trial is up, I think it's $32 per user, which is damn near free. And when you see what this thing can do for you, just kind of keep all of the leads nurtured in the background. It's pretty incredibly efficient and effective. So I will turn it over to Brittany with Blitz to take it away.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you, everyone, for joining today.
So great intro, pretty much covered the basics. So Blitz is your lead nurturing tool, can be used with Datalot along with any other types of contacts you have. So if you have a list of previous customers or old quotes or a list that you purchased or anything like that, you can import it. You can also bring in leads individually. So if someone walked into your office or called in or you got a referral, something like that, you can type those in. You can set up web forms out on your website. Those will come in automatically. So lots of different sources can be coming in to the system. This helps you stay organized. It helps automate your follow-up process. And then it also provides valuable reporting on staff activity, a high-level status and where you're at with all of your leads, which is pretty much what we're looking at here on this page. So it keeps everything in one place so you know what's going on in your office. Even if you're working from home, something like that, you can always check to see what's going on. So what we'll be doing is going over an example of a Datalot lead that came into Blitz automatically, take you through how to work that lead. So you'll see an example of what you'll be looking at day to day in the system and then how things can be automated from there. So Michaela already had sent over a lead, so we're going to pull that up real quick. We have a tool or a screen here called the Shark Tank. Basically, that's a list of all of your leads that have come in that have not been assigned yet. So with Datalot, since those leads are being live transferred, generally most people are using the Shark Tank for that. Another option is you could have them assigned automatically to someone. So you can choose how that works. You also will have a pop-up right when a lead comes in as well. So we don't see it here in this example, but down at the bottom, right when it comes in, at that moment you'll see a pop-up down in the bottom corner, and it'll even ding, so you'll know right when that lead comes in. And you can get to it very easily. So let's click on Michael Bailey here. That will take us to the lead log screen. This is where you'll find all the information on Michael. You can send out emails, you can schedule appointments, take notes, and all of those things to help you stay organized. So the first thing that you'll see here is the history page. So we have several tabs up here at the top. We're going to start off on the history. This is where you're taking notes. We'll also have a note that's already been added by Datalot when they send the lead in. So we can see all the same information right here is the same as what we just saw in the Datalot dashboard as well. So what most agents will do is they'll have Blitz up on one screen, they'll have their rater up on the other screen, and you can simply copy and paste the information over into the rater. So after you do that, based on your phone call, you want to make sure that you're dispositioning the lead correctly. So we'll say, for example, we quoted Michael, and he wants to think about it and wants a call back on Friday. So whatever ends up happening, you can type your note out here, and then you're going to disposition the lead. So in this case, we'll say this was a call-in, of course, since they transfer the call. And then we have milestone and status, and this tells you where you're at in the sales process. And as Mike explained a moment ago, based on what the status and milestone is, that's how the system knows what to automate. And I'll be getting into a little bit more detail on that in a minute here. So the milestone tells you, it's kind of like a timeline of where you're at in the sales process. What's great is you can completely customize these. So we do have some defaults in here that we're seeing right here, but if these don't really make sense or if you don't like the terminology, you can always rename them to whatever you want. So if you already have a system in place and everyone's familiar with that, you can always change it. So in this case, we're going to mark it as quoted. That's where we're at in the sales process. Based on what the milestone is, you'll have different status options. So if I was to choose a different status, sold for example, I'll have different options in the status as I did with this quoted milestone. So the status basically tells you how you're following up with them moving forward. So after you quote someone, not everyone is interested. We have people that are not interested. We have people who want to requote in the future. Maybe they have a ticket they're waiting to fall off or something like that. So you can mark them as requote. So based on what happened on the phone call, you can choose the correct status, and then the system will know what to do with that lead. So this is a hot lead. He wants to call back on Friday. He just has to figure out a couple things, and then he hopefully is going to be binding. So we'll go ahead and do that. And you can assign it to yourself and then hit Save History Note. And there we go. So we have our note in here. It tells you when you did that. So that way next time you pull up this lead, you'll know exactly what's going on with it. It's also helpful on a reporting standpoint because as a owner or a manager, you can come back here and see what's going on. You can get live updates about what your staff is doing based on the notes that they're putting in. You can also run reports based on these actions. How many calls have they made? How many emails have they sent out? Things like that. So there's a lot of reporting that goes around this information that they're adding as well. It's not just for them, it's also for the manager or the owner to see what's going on. So we'll continue with this example. He wants a call back on Friday. So in that case, we need to schedule that follow-up so you can see it on the calendar. So I'm going to go over here to the left, click on New Appointment. And we'll do Friday at, we'll say 2 o'clock, for example. And this is going to be a phone call. And you can schedule anything in here. It doesn't have to be a meeting. It doesn't have to be a phone call. It can even be a reminder task. So the calendar is used to keep you on task with anything you need to do with this person. Even if it's just something internal, maybe you need to send something in the mail, for example, you could put that in there as a task. All right, so I put in my note. That's what will show up on the calendar, and I'll show you what the calendar looks like in just a minute. So I'm clicking Add New Appointment. We can see that pops up over here on the left. And then you can always edit or delete that too. So if I want to delete it, maybe I called him back on Friday and he's not interested anymore or something, I can click on that X and that will delete it out of there. Also with the system, we have a lot of little shortcuts that you'll see. One example is the quick action. So everything that I just showed you, adding this note, scheduling this follow-up, we have a shortcut called the quick action that basically does all of that in one click. So if I happen to call Michael back on Friday and we, let's see, I was going to say sold, but that's not in here. Say he said he wasn't interested now. Instead of typing that out, selecting over here in the drop downs, I can just in one click add that note. There we go. There's my note and the status and milestone changed. So these can be customized to fit any common scenarios that you have. So that way you're not retyping the same information over and over. You can have them programmed in here. It's very easy to set up. It's setting one of these up is pretty much the same thing as typing out what a history note would be. And then that will be available for your staff to use, especially for people who are doing telemarketing. If you have a giant list you want them to call down, things like left voicemail or bad lead, things like that, instead of having to type that out over and over and over, you can just click left voicemail and then go to the next one. So it makes it very easy. All right, so let's take a look at that appointment that I just scheduled for Friday on the schedule here. So up in the main menu, there's a schedule tab. So if you click on schedule, this will bring you to your calendar. You can also view anyone else's calendar in the office. If I click on Friday, there's my appointment. So if I click on this person's name, that will pop back up the information that we were just looking at. You can also search for leads too. So up here, if maybe someone called back in, you can search for their name. Same thing. We'll just go ahead and do that. Click on the name, and it'll take you straight back to that same screen. So this screen right here is what your staff or anyone who's making the calls or selling will be looking at the most in the system. So we've focused here on the history tab. There are several other tabs available. So the details, this is the information that was added when the lead was added. So very similar to in the history, this information here is also added to the details. What's great about that is any of these fields can be searched on. So for example, if I wanted to find everyone who has, a certain carrier, like this person's not currently insured, but say, State Farm or, Farmers or Allstate, if you want to find everyone who has that carrier currently because maybe you heard the rates went up or something, you could filter your entire database and find everyone that has that carrier. So it gives you a lot of flexibility, and over time you'll begin to build up this database you can go back and rework. So you're really getting the most value out of your leads. The last thing I want to touch on in this screen is the email. You can manually send out an email. That's what you would do from that tab. You can create different email templates as well. So if I click on a template here, you can set it up where it'll substitute the person's information in. So hello Michael, it added his name in here, and then you can add your email signature down at the bottom based on which user is logged in. So this is the manual way to do it. You can also have the system set up to automatically email people at certain times, which I'll show you here next. So let's close out of this screen. Now, if anyone has questions, just a reminder that in your GoToWebinar portal, there's a little question section. So if you type out a question, we'll make sure and get to those before we're finished up here. So let's take a look at the workflows. And the workflows, really what I just took you through, that was more of a manual way to do things. So I manually scheduled an appointment. I can manually send out an email. But workflows can be set up to automatically do all of that for you. That way,
Brittany, yeah, let me just say that for people, for agents, this is really the magic. Based on the status and the how you tagged this particular prospect on your screen where we were looking at milestones and status, these workflows automatically happen. So as soon as you sort of saved your notes and properly tagged it, this is the magic that happens right beneath each one of these separate types of workflows. So this is really I think where you get maximum value out of the system, where you can kind of get in and get out of the system quickly, and you have essentially set it and can forget it, and it automatically gets nurtured. And this is what happens after you save it. So thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt.
That's okay. Thanks, Mike. So you can create different workflows for different scenarios. So as we saw, there are different statuses, there are different milestones. So there's all kinds of different follow-up scenarios that you'll have with your leads. People that you're following up with right now that you just quoted, people that you want to follow up within 6 months, people that you've lost their business, you want to follow up with them to gain their business back, brand new leads that you haven't even got a hold of yet. So you have all these different scenarios that you can consistently follow up with automatically. And we've heard a lot of scenarios where, each salesperson will be following up in different ways. One person will follow up, a couple times and then just give up on it because they couldn't get a hold of them. We'll have other people who will follow up 10 times. And, some people will follow up in the future, some people won't. So everyone kind of has their own process unless you put something like this into place that will automate it for you. So that way, everyone's consistent. It makes your reporting a lot more accurate. So if there's some kind of issue, it's not because of the way they're following up differently than someone else. So we'll just look at an example here. So a workflow is split up into a couple different parts. So we have the filters, and then we have the triggers and actions. So the filters, that tells you who you're targeting. So in this case, the status is a requote. So it's only if they have a status of requote currently that anything will happen in this particular workflow with that lead. The triggers and actions, that tells you what's going to happen and when it's going to happen. So in this case, it's working backwards from, we have a field called the contract date. So this is someone who, they're not interested right now and you want to follow up later, or maybe there's a ticket on the record that they're waiting to fall off. So you can actually input a date, and this will follow up around that date. So in this case, 30 days before, it'll automatically put a follow-up phone call on your schedule. So that calendar that we were just looking at a couple minutes ago, it'll automatically put an appointment on your calendar. So that way, when you log in for the day, you don't have to think about who to call and sift through the system and try to figure out who you need to follow up with. It'll just automatically put those phone calls in your schedule. So it takes a lot of the thinking out of it. And then 21 days before, in this example, it'll send out an email automatically. So you're not manually going in there. You don't even have to log into the system for it to do that. It's just automatically sending it out. Anytime it's 21 days before someone's X date or renewal date, it'll automatically send this email out. And then it continues that process. So generally, most agents are using this around the person's renewal date or their X date. So if they're not interested right now, that's a great time to follow up with them. So as long as you have that date, even if you take a guesstimate, you just, maybe you just put 6 months from now if you're not sure what that is, you can put that date in there and it'll work from that date. And what's great about it is it'll automatically add 6 months to that date. So if that date passes and nothing's happened, it'll automatically continue that process and bump it out another 6 months and bump it out another 6 months. So over time, you have a lot of leads in here that you're continuing that follow-up with and recycling them until something happens. So you're really maximizing your value by automating that process. And that's just one example. You can have different processes set up for people that you just quoted. In this case, these are just reminders adding to your schedule, telling you to continue following up, and that prevents people from falling through the cracks. So, especially if you're using paper files or something like that, it's very easy to forget to call someone back or to have it, under a pile of papers and you totally forgot about it. Or even if you're trying to use Excel or Outlook or something like that, it's just not going to give you these types of reminders, and it's very easy for leads to fall through the cracks. So that's another example. What's great about this is you can completely customize it. We do have some defaults that we'll add to your account for you when you sign up. So this is one of those defaults. But if you want to follow up 2 weeks later instead of 1 day later, for example, we can change this to fit your process. So if you already have a process in place and we can program that into the system, or if you want to start with the defaults and then you want to tweak them later, you can start it, see how it goes, and then if you want to make a change, just contact us and we will reprogram this around what you want it to do. So those are just a few examples. And just a reminder, those are automatically adding to your schedule. So when you log in, you'll have your schedule will be filled up. Here's all the people you need to call today. It makes it very simple. So you don't have to navigate around and try to figure out who to call. It's just all going to be right here. So that's about all I have today. If we have any questions, I don't see any questions popped up yet, but now's the time if you have questions. I'm going to send it back to Mike, and we'll go over our offers here. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Brittany. I know that's a lot of information, and if you're interested in moving forward, you'll get some one-on-one time with Michaela and with Brittany to get a little bit more granular, set filters up on the lead types that you want, and kind of get you going if that's appealing to you. But I would strongly mention something else to you, just that that we've learned over time, that agents are just so burdened, as with service. It's really hard to sort of put yourself in a situation or put your staff in a situation where they can just focus on taking calls all day long. But in order to really maximize your likelihood of closing these leads and these calls is, really got to get in the zone and set time aside, daily or every other day where you can just focus on taking calls without being interrupted with service. Let the service be done, before or after you've blocked out time for calls or by somebody else. If you're a one-person shop, that's great, but, all the service calls are just going to have to go to a message until you're done, focusing on your sales, because if you're not growing, you better get going, because companies just aren't going to take it anymore. We're all being asked to, work harder and make less, and, I think that growth is being demanded by everybody, and this definitely gets your phone to ring, and we can help empower you with sales skills to close these, but the lead nurturing is a big part of it. So if you're interested in moving forward, whether you're a member or not, let us know. We can make a handoff to Michaela and Brittany directly for you and get you going. You control your entire dashboard and your destiny. There's no pressure to, invest heavily or buy a certain number of leads, or, they're consultants for you that are going to help get you going as quickly or as slowly as you want to get going and buy these calls. And we're always here to be helpful. I hope you found this valuable. Let us know how else we can be helpful. Our contact information is on this slide, and as I mentioned earlier, if you are a member, you become a member, we'll give you a $150 call bonus to get your live calls going, 2 free months of lead nurturing and Blitz, and before you even take that first call, we'll spend 60 to 90 minutes on the telephone going through some tactical sales training and really the science that you need to be familiar with to maximize your likelihood of closing each one of these calls the first time. Thank you very much for your time, everybody. Have a great day, and let us know how else we can be helpful. Bye now.